All right, are we live?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Well, good afternoon to all of our energy campers and our participants. Very excited to have you with us on this Friday. Sorry we missed you yesterday, but glad to have you with us on Friday. I am particularly excited about today's guest speakers because this is our upcoming park project right here in our area. And as we're talking about all of this renewable energy as a part of Energy Camp, our developers have taken great care, thought, and consideration in looking at renewable energy and how to conserve energy in this project. So I thought this is a very cool way for us to wrap up our Energy Camp this year. And so with that, I will introduce in just a moment our guest speakers, but I do have our winners of our prizes from Wednesday and Thursday. So first up, we have our winners from Thursday. We had Arav P and Sri S. We'll send your parents an email, let them know, and get you information about how to collect your prize. And Thursday's prize winners, we have Jaden M and Hansita T. Congratulations for our prize winners on Wednesday and Thursday. Again, we will contact your parents, let them know how to gather your prize. Don't forget for today, final chance to be automatically entered by asking a question in the comment section. You can be automatically entered. Or if you did any of our at-home demonstrations, you can go ahead and send us your pictures. That will get you automatically entered as well. And then our winners will receive emails next week to find out who won our final prizes of the day. Before I introduce our guest speakers today, though, I'm going to give my guest speakers one of our jokes of the day. So for our guest speakers, here you go. Our joke of the day: why are solar panels so trustworthy? Anyone?
I give up.
I really want to, but I have nothing.
Because they don't work in shady areas.
Love it.
There's your Energy Camp joke of the day.
Yes, you saved the
I
best
think
for
I would.
last. Yes.
I'm going to like. So with that, I will introduce our designers for the Beach Bluff project. They'll give you a little overview of the project. Hopefully you all of our participants had a chance to see their video presentation today. But I will let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about it, and then we will get some of your questions. So I will turn it over.
Thanks, Evan. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Sounds great.
Hey, everybody. So my name is Jeff Christensen. We are a landscape architect and site designers. I work for Surface 678 in Durham, North Carolina. And so as you probably saw in the video, we designed amongst a team of consultants, Beach Bluff County Park. And I'll introduce our consultants in a little bit, but just give you an overview of the park. It's about 200 acres in southeast Wake County. And we're really excited about it because, you know, you often think of energy, you know, of just solar panels, heat, you know, air savings. But this is really all inclusive. It's combining energy savings, you know, with outdoor exploration, natural resource management, you know, environmental benefits, human health and wellness, and so much more. And that's what we were trying to convey with the video that we put together for you all. And we're just really excited making this a resource for the public, and also bringing you into this design process before it gets built. So I hope you all enjoy that video and enjoy our presentation. With us today is Meredith Smith. So she's with In Situ Architects, and Reggie Adams with Sigma Engineers, who is our electrical engineering consultant who helped a lot with our solar panels, and others within his team also helped with geothermal energy and various other mechanical, electric, and plumbing systems. So Meredith, Reggie, thank you all for joining us. Evan, that's, I guess, a brief overview. If y'all have any questions or thoughts, we're all here.
Thank you. I know I certainly have a few questions. I hope our participants do as well. So we can go ahead and we'll let Meredith and Reggie introduce themselves, and then we can go ahead and we can get some questions.
Hi guys, I'm Meredith Smith. I'm one of the designers on the project working for In Situ Studio, as Jeff said. So I am technically an intern architect, and I've been working for about 6 years, I believe, and we work out of Raleigh, North Carolina.
Hey guys, my name is Reggie Adams. Along with my business partner, Paul Remedy, we're the owners of Sigma Engineered Solutions, and we're based here in Raleigh. Paul and I are both professional engineers. I've been working in this industry since 1988, and Paul's been working in the industry since the early 90s.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so let's see if we have a few questions. John, we'll check in. Any questions popping up in the comments over there?
So far, we have not had any questions.
All right. Well, I know for sure I have a couple. So in looking through the presentation, there's a lot of ways that you talk about not just using renewable energy, but perhaps you all could tell us a little bit about how we tried to minimize energy use, and maybe talk about developing how to position some of the buildings, or how the roofs are even oriented and shaped to minimize solar impacts and things like that. I believe you call them passive energy conservation, I believe is the term for it.
Sure, I'll take that. So at In Situ, we always design with passive energy in mind. And a lot of what that has to do with is controlling where the glazing or the windows are on the project. So when we're laying out buildings, we'll often do things like making them long in the east-west direction, so that the largest faces of the buildings are on the north side and the south side. And then we control where the windows are placed to minimize the amount of southern sun that's coming in and heating the building. At In Situ, we really love northern sun, so we'll put big windows on the north face, because that's never direct sunlight. Sunlight's never going to come in and hit the floor and heat the room up on the northern face. And these are also principles that we use when we're designing houses. And for example, on Beach Bluff, we have very long overhangs on the southern faces to reduce the amount of direct light that comes into the buildings on all of the projects.
And I'll piggyback a little bit on that, Evan. The building orientations actually really help. The whole east-west orientation of buildings, south facing, really help with solar PV, because it's the most efficient orientation for installing solar photovoltaic panels on a building. It allows us to get the most sunlight over the course of a day, over the course of a year, and produce as much electricity as we possibly can 365 days a year. So they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Go ahead, Meredith.
Go ahead. Oh, okay. I was also going to say, we frequently slope the roofs so that they have about the sunlight hits them at the most efficient angle. So that can be a good technique as well.
Absolutely.
If there's going to be photovoltaic arrays on the roofs.
So Evan, I'll just add from our professional standpoint, if you think about a housing development, that you see under construction, or maybe even one that everybody lives in, how many trees were saved in that development, or did they just clear cut everything because it's easiest? That may be the easiest approach, but that's not the right approach. And what we're doing is we're trying to save over 90% of the existing forest. That was a request by the community, And we can do that by just paying attention to, the existing site, doing a site analysis, grading with the existing topography rather than just going right ahead and cutting out the trees for, I guess the easiest development. So, you'll see that in the video, and you'll see that hopefully when you visit the park in a year or two. So.
And we've got a question. Someone wants to clarify that acronym, what solar PV stands for.
It stands for solar photovoltaic.
And what does that mean?
Basically, what that means is a solar PV panel is a without getting really down into the weeds here. Solar PV panels are basically the panels you'll see on houses or any kind of other structure. Basically, inside these panels, the panels are generally about 3 feet high and about 6 or 7 feet long. And inside these panels, you've got wafers of silicon that have chemicals on either side. And when any kind of light hits them, it actually causes electricity to flow. And if you get enough of these wafers inside a panel and you get enough panels, you start generating a lot of electricity, a relatively large amount of electricity. In the instance of the Beach Bluff Park, to the point where we're generally able to produce the majority of the electricity in the buildings that we're putting these panels on throughout the course of a day.
Yeah, so for our participants out there, think about our presentation going back to Monday from Southern Energy. Basically solar PV, the solar panels that we learned about from Southern Energy Management on there as well. So in addition to what you just heard about them.
All right, and we've got someone wants to know how much the park is going to cost. And someone else wants to know what would happen if the building was too big for the plat where the land was there.
So, Evan, I can answer, I guess, the first question. Right now, as part of the bond that was passed in previous years, the current budget allocated for it is about 12 million, and that would include the whole entire site and all the buildings that are proposed. So that I guess a visitor center, agricultural building, playground shelter, maintenance facility, trails, roads and parking, a wildlife viewing platform, accessibility, and various small shelters that can be reservable. So all that would be included, but that's, I guess, the start of the budget of where we are right now. And what was the other question?
I think it was kind of getting at the design process and how we make sure that everything is going to fit where we're wanting it to. Right.
So before we even start design, we have to look at a site sometimes before the property is even purchased, and do a thorough site analysis, and we call it a program. So what that means is we figure out what the owner wants, what the end users want, and we do an analysis of what it takes to build that, what would be required, and then we have to see if that can actually fit on the site. If not, then the program either needs to get reduced, or we need to look at doing that in another site. And oftentimes, you see buildings, you see landscape site work that, again, is very compact, and it actually doesn't fit on site. The outcome isn't what it should be. So yeah, that all gets done as part of a couple months process before design is really even considered. And a lot of it also has to do with standards from cities, municipalities about setbacks, tree preservation, density. So for example, we don't want to build 100% of the property as a building, when we have surrounding, housings and neighborhoods nearby. It just wouldn't fit in the area. So there's just really a detailed analysis that has to occur between, the whole team before design is even considered.
I will say, in the case of Beach Bluff, it's really considered a privilege to work on a 300-acre site. And in one of the core concepts of Beach Bluff is that all of the main public spaces that the public members would occupy would be on the main level of the building and would look out into the natural landscape. So for this project, for example, there isn't really a second story on any of the important buildings like Park Center, because each of the rooms is so closely associated with the view outside, and you can sit in the exhibit area or something and look out into the landscape. So that's been a really nice part of this project, was having the acreage to do that instead of building in 2 or 3 stories.
Okay, and we've got a question here about whether old houses can have solar panels, and do we see a lot of that?
You can put solar panels just about on any kind of structure. You see a lot of people that have older homes, what's called retrofitting. It's basically means you're putting something new in or on something that never really had it before. I'll give you a good example just here in the neighborhood that I live in, 2 or 3, and the houses here are older. They're 30, 40 years old. And I've got several neighbors that are putting solar panels on their homes right now. Wake County government, who is actually sponsoring Energy Camp and is going to be the owner of this park, has done several projects where they've gone back on existing buildings and put solar panels on their buildings. So yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah, I've actually been looking at doing that to my house that was built in the 50s. So
yeah,
totally possible. And they come knocking on your door if they think you've got enough light.
They absolutely will come knocking on your door. Yes, sir.
We've got another question here. Are there any, this is already a pretty big park, but Kumar is looking ahead here and wants to know if we would ever expand the park in the future.
So yes, most of Wake County's parks, there's about 7 or 8, parks combined with nature preserves across the county. Those have all been expanded upon over time, and the same would happen with Beach Bluff, and we have somewhat planned for that. The biggest area of expansion would probably occur along Middle Creek. So right now, the county owns land north of Middle Creek that's included in this property, but we aren't developing any portion of it. I guess number one, for environmental concerns, and number two, it's hard to cross Middle Creek, with the pedestrian bridge, because we have to deal with flooding, poor soils, wildlife habitat, and various other things. So in the future, I think not only can we figure out how to do that, but also be able to connect to various other properties along Middle Creek, such as the Triangle Land Conservancy, and you'll see future plans that even show a greenway or trail access along the creek. That may be 20, 30, 40 years out, but that was one of the other number one priorities of Wake County is providing access across Middle Creek. That will most likely happen in the future.
Okay, we touched on this a little bit, but someone would like to know how we funded the park. I guess you could talk a little bit about the bond referendum.
So Evan, I probably can't speak for Eric Staley and Chris Snow. He's the parks director. He was the one who really pushed this forward in the last bond. That was I believe 2019, but before COVID. So what we did on our end was move forward with the design and really try and promote it within the community during the public input sessions that we had. And so I think that was the outcome was that bond trying to get this park built. One of the reasons why we felt it was so important, was because with the 540 highway expansion, we're seeing development really happening at a very fast pace in this area. We showed how subdivisions are, getting built all around here, and we're really trying to preserve this open space for the community, especially in this area, but, again, throughout Wake County, just as a resource, to the public. So that was our goal. Again, I don't want to speak for Chris, the parks director, because he was the one who, really promoted this park and pushed it, forward with the community. So that's what I would say, though.
Okay, and when is the park? Do we know when it's slated to open?
So I think construction. Well, we're still working on design, and that's scheduled to be completed by the end of this year. So construction, we're hoping would start sometime in 2022, and it'll last approximately 1 year. So sometime in 2023, the park we're hoping will be open. We've had a lot of setbacks, such as COVID, of course. We've worked through that, and the county has been working hard on getting the park staffed, planning for the opening, and also promoting the park, getting all the survey, geotechnical engineering, soils investigation, and various site analysis complete with the park. So that's all done. We're trying to finish up design, permitting, and then construction is slated to begin in, I would say, from 2022 to 2023, and then hopefully we'll have the grand opening in 2023.
Okay, great. And we have another question wanting to kind of review the solar panels in the park, what what the plan is there, and how we decided to do that.
Well, so right now we've got 3 buildings that have solar panels on them. And those were chosen for a couple of reasons. The Park Center has got the biggest energy usage, so that made the most sense as far as installing solar panels. The second building that has the most energy usage is the maintenance building. So obviously that was a good candidate as well. What we're calling the agricultural building has the third most energy usage, and we decided to put solar panels on that. And that was twofold. One, it was obviously to offset power usage, but also we wanted it to be, because it's going to be kind of, it faces out, it's kind of the face of the park from the road. And we wanted the community and Wake County citizens to see that we were doing these energy reduction type strategies at the park. And so it's kind of I'll call it an ambassador for at least one of the strategies we're using, which is the solar PV. Those were the decisions. As far as how many panels and things like that we're doing, a lot of that is set by a couple different things. One, we've only got so much roof space for some of these buildings. So we can only put so many solar panels on these roofs. The other thing is that because of the way we're using these, Duke Power, who actually obviously is the utility provider that provides electricity to the different buildings on the campus, will only allow us to offset to a certain degree. Now, they will allow us to offset to zero, but they won't allow us to offset past that. So we can't produce more electricity than the buildings would normally use. So those are kind of some of the factors that that we looked at when trying to decide where and how many panels to put on buildings.
And Reggie, it's also about, you did a very detailed life cycle cost analysis, correct? Just showing that the cost of installing the panels over time, will realize so much, energy savings that would offset that cost. Is that right?
We did do that analysis. That's correct.
Someone wants to know how we get the power to the buildings that don't have solar panels.
Well, just like we get them to the buildings that have solar panels. So all the buildings have power coming from Duke Progress Energy, just like your house does. There's a transformer, which is this green box that guys may or may not actually see in your neighborhoods. You've probably actually seen the meters on the side of your house, the thing that the power goes into from Duke Energy, and that's what allows Duke Power to see how much energy you're using at your house on a monthly basis. But all the buildings out there are getting power from Duke Energy. I call it's Duke Progress Energy is actually the name of the power company. So all the buildings are getting electricity from Duke Power. The only thing that the solar panels are doing is offsetting the amount of power we're actually buying, or the county's going to buy from Duke Energy on a daily basis. When the sun goes down, or when you've got a really cloudy day, the solar panels aren't going to work, or not going to work. They're not going to work at night, and they're not going to work really well on a cloudy day. So we've got to have the ability to have power at the buildings all the time, because we're not storing power. Storing power is a whole nother, it gets really expensive to do that. And we don't really have a lot of room allocated for storing power. So all the buildings would be powered regardless of whether we had solar panels on the roofs or not.
Awesome. Well, that's most of the questions I'm seeing right now. We can give people a little bit more time to chime in with anything that they were still wondering about. And in the meantime, if there's anything you guys think that we should touch on, or that any questions that you guys feel like people might have that you want to answer, just go ahead. It'd be great.
So I was wondering if we can maybe talk for a second while we see if any other participants have questions. Maybe a little bit about some of the considerations that went into the planning process as it relates to minimizing environmental impact.
So Evan, I can talk to that a little bit. So, one example I would give is, using natural resources, the existing forest, the existing, environment can really help mitigate, hazards and catastrophic events. So if you think about floods, as floods occur, what helps, I guess, create those floods is when you have so much development that destroys the soils, the vegetation that can handle and uptake some of that water. And so with this park, we're trying to preserve, it would be the wetlands, the existing streams, floodplains that can really handle all that water, so that somebody living, we would say downstream of the property, their house would not be affected as much. So it's really important, to preserve those existing forests, because, if we pave over the whole site, if we destroy all the soils, all the trees, then the floods, will start increasing. And actually what happens is FEMA will raise the floodplain, 10 years from now as that occurs. So that's just one example of how preserving the existing vegetation and soils, especially in wetlands, are so important. It's also very valuable in mitigating pollutants, especially from stormwater. So if you think about a giant parking lot, a lot of car oils, fluids come off that. It's very polluted, and the vegetation can help uptake those toxins before it reaches the stream, and eventually goes out into the ocean. So that was a very important consideration for us, is preserving those existing vegetation, ecology, and natural resources.
All right, John, did any of our participants have any new questions for us?
Looks like we covered them all.
Excellent. All right. Well, then this brings us to the end of Energy Camp. For all of our participants out there, thank you so much for joining us this year. It is great to have you all with us. We're excited to run a second year of virtual camp. To all of today's presenters, thank you so much for being with us. I think that this project is a great way to culminate this year's camp. We looked at so many different forms of renewable energy that it's great to see all of that play out right in front of our very eyes, right in our own backyard, so to speak. So thank you all for coming on with us this afternoon. We'll have 2 more prize winners for today, so we'll send that out next week. Thank you for all of us, or to all of you, for being with us, and we wish you all a fantastic weekend. Take care, everyone.